So welcome to this look at the Animal Factory Amplification, Baron, Samedi and Pit Viper. So let's start by checking these out with a really basic synth voice, and that is this top trace on the Modax data, a triangle wave through a VCA, very simple patch. You can hear the oscillator has a pitch sequence, and I'm using an envelope to modulate a VCA. Now let's patch that over into the Pit Viper. And back out of the Pit Viper. And you can hear, like, when these are guitar pedals, which Animal Factory Amplification also make, it responds to these incoming dynamics. Putting static waves in can be great, but a dynamic input is going to be way more expressive, and we're going to hear all these nuances and details in the distortions. So let's play around. One nice thing, before we actually get to playing with these controls, we have a dry wet right on the module, which is great because it means we don't need to buy a crossfader or use a mixer to blend dry and wet signals. We'll go fully wet. We have Venom and Hiss. Serve as level controls. Got Toxicity. Switches for Fear and Malice. Plenty of other switches for controlling various bits of character and that's great, really nice fuzzy responsive distortion. Now let's patch over to the Baron Samedi. Very different character, almost like some really intense pulse width modulation on this clipping, which comes from this death control. Ooh, that noise is great. Ooh, it's kicking and screaming. So again, we have a dry wet, controls for voodoo, life, death, burial, and rum. Let's get some modulation into this. We have attenuators for modulation at the bottom. Blend in some dry. So it's great for not so subtle destruction of your oscillators. Dry wet is a massive bonus, especially with something like this where we're really killing and clamping down that signal. You can bring that fundamental tone back in. And let's try Pit Viper with some modulation as well. Again, it's really destructive. So let's check this out on some other sound. So for this part of the video, let's check out putting in some drums. Now I have a kick, snare, clap, hi-hat and weird metallic percussion thing. from some Eurorack drum modules. You currently listen to this dry. It's the green trace on data, and you can see by the blue trace, which is just taking this input, it is completely being destroyed by the Baron and Samedi. So let's kill the dry sound and check out the Baron. Prepare yourself. And that poor innocent drum loop is destroyed. Again, in this case of complete mass destruction, that dry wet is a godsend for being able to keep some of that clarity and transient of the dry sound and mix in that really heavily smashed character from the Baron. Let's play around with the controls. I'll go fully wet again. I'm almost getting like a zippy sound there. That's a lot harsher on that clap, almost noise gated. It's really cool. Turning up depth. It's pushing that focus into the top end. More noise and really heavy compression. So muting that, here's the dry signal again while I patch over to the Pit Viper. And let's do the same, take it fully wet and check that sound out. So killing my dry signal in my mixer, here's the Pit Viper fully wet. Not as bonkers, but still suitably smashed. And the Fear and Malice switches, if you listen to the kick, really playing around with what areas hitting this distortion drive fuzz. Much more subtle than the Baron. But again, really cool, especially with that dry signal brought back in. Again, CV at the bottom. And at that point, it's like a really characterful compressor where we've hit its input transformer, if the compressor had one, and got some drive and character. And there's lots of compression and really heavy pushing on that snare and clap as well. Back to dry. Super cool. So let's take a look at processing effects chains. Here's my dry signal before we get started. Now here's the delay that this module is going into. Already some noise and a little bit of clipping. It's a PT based delay, so that chip has some noise at longer delay times. It's currently at 100% dry in the Pit Viper. Let's take it fully wet. I'm going to remove the actual signal. So here's the delay line, which is going into Pit Viper. It's got this great amp-like sound. So I'm going to turn that all the way down. Here's the dry sound again. I'm just going to bring this back up and show how we can create these great contrasting textures and dimensions with distorted effects trails sat behind a dry sound in a mix. So that's Pit Viper. Here's the dry, completely unprocessed sound where we move over to the Baron. Delay signal on its own, fully dry. Way more fuzzy than the Pit Viper. That breakup's really cool. Let's try that against the dry sound. Just turn it down a little bit. Taking the dry out, let's bring the dry wet back, which is so fully wet delay but dry through the Baron, and just a little bit of that fuzz on that delay. There's a huge range of potential tones, all creating either really in-your-face fuzz and distortion, amp-like sounds, or just something that you can blend on the module, or in this case, blend a processed delay version from the module with a completely dry sequence. So for this final patch, I thought we'd embrace the overall destruction and character that I generally get and feel from these Animal Factory Amplification modules. Their pedals are great too, but we've got drums into the Baron, the bass line into the Pit Viper, and let's just play around. So the drums are currently fully dry. Let's kill the synth sound. And the Baron's currently just kind of clicking away and then really focused around that clap sound, which is great to mix in. We'll play around with the knob settings in a minute, but I really do like that sound, just really focused in around that clap and some clicky noises around the hat. Now the bass sound into the Pit Viper is already modulated, but I'm going to pull that out. And I'm modulating the Pit Viper. Let's modulate my oscillator again. Again, a blend against the drums. Now, using the kick as a mechanism to duck and sidechain compress and pump this bass against the drums, I'm triggering an envelope that is playing the same rhythm as my drums, inverting that envelope and bringing that back in to modulate the bass. So here it is as is. Then with this inverted and offset envelope, you can hear that's cutting in and out. So let's check that out against the drums. Play around with the drums. Oh, that's brutal. So we've not looked at the specifics of what these knobs actually do, like the def knob on the Baron Samedi is kind of like a PWM over this clipping circuit. Now there is a manual that goes through all this, but that's not really how I feel about this stuff. I wanted to play with these and just be quite creative, offer some sounds and demos of what this sounds like with synths and drums and effects chains and totally destroying stuff, bringing in amp-like sounds, blending the dry and wet. They're great tools for a whole range of tones that are quite often missed within the modular format, whereas the guitar pedal world is spoilt with fuzzes and distortions and unique takes on those. So that's it for this video with the Animal Factory Amplification, Baron Samedi and Pit Viper. Thanks for watching, and check out other future music videos in the Modular Monthly playlist on our YouTube channel.